Good evening. Here we are, another Facebook Live. My name is Antony Higginbotham. I am your Member of Parliament for Burnley and Padiham and Cliviger, Westthorne, Hapton, where I am now, and all of the beautiful surrounding areas. This is, I don't know what number Facebook Live this is.
3, 4?
3 or 4 this year. Probably the 3rd or 4th Facebook Live this year. And for me, there are an opportunity for you to ask me any question via Jamie, who's here to act as my Andrew Moore, I think, as we said last time. So he'll filter the comments, which means I can look at you and let's see how it goes. But we'll normally give it a couple of minutes, just until people...
Yeah. Have you got any plans for Easter? Obviously, we've got the Easter weekend, Anthony.
Yeah, long bank holiday. I hope everyone's looking forward to it. I will probably get a bit of work done. It's a quieter time in terms of people emailing in. So I'll get some stuff done, reply to some people who are waiting on replies from it. And obviously, as is important, go and see family and all of that whilst I'm up here for a couple of days.
Yeah, good. There's been a lot of people coming actually on Facebook over the past 2 days. People sending private messages to you, which you've shown me, and then the actual comments on that Facebook post. You got a very lovely comment of Sandra. I know last time we did it. Did we start at 6 last time?
We did.
Yeah, and a few people, Sandra being one of them, I think Diana as well, said 7 o'clock could be better. So here we are at 7 o'clock, and Sandra says thank you for changing the time to 7 o'clock, Anthony. She does send you a very nice message. She says, basically she just sets out why she thinks 7's better, and then says she thinks you're doing really well running these alongside the surgeries, which I agree with her on. Basically enabling any constituent to speak to you, whether they can come to your surgeries or not. She says, it must be very hard work as you receive so much negative comments. I'm sure it must be the same for all MPs, which is difficult. All I can say is we think you're doing a tremendous job for our town. I'll definitely be voting for you in the next general election. Is, in my opinion, the best MP we've ever had, which I'm sure you'll be happy to hear, Anthony.
Thanks, Sandra.
She just says, focus on letting people know what you've been doing for the town. Hopefully that will speak for itself. She has sent a question as well, which we'll get on to. But...
well, Sandra, thank you so much. It's always really nice when people send messages like that. I read all of the messages and emails, and it is lovely. I think, for me, these Facebook Lives are really important. They're one of, as you say, a number of things I do to try and keep in touch with people, answer questions, and I try and do it in a pretty unfiltered way, right? I mean, ask me anything, I'll answer it. People might not always like my answers, but I'm pretty clear about them. And you're right, so there's in-person surgeries, letters I write, surveys I send out, leaflets, the email newsletter I do every week, the website I keep updated. There should be a link on the Facebook Live, but if not, it's antonyhig.co.uk. All of those things for me are about telling people what I'm doing, because ultimately everything I do is as your Member of Parliament.
Yeah.
And that to me is really important.
Yeah, well, Sandra's question, so her first question, to jump straight into it, I think a few people have joined now. There's about 20 odd people watching at the moment. So to jump straight in, Sandra basically asks, is there anything you can do to help protect tenants in private rented properties? And the reason she asks, it's quite a long message, is she's asking about Section 21 notices. Yeah. She's asking whether you support her creating a new regulator. And then it kind of ties into another question that were posted by a lady called Rachel, who I saw that you responded to with the 1.6 million Burnley Council received of funding, but she then touches on the Section 21 evictions as well. Yeah. So it's kind of a question on protection for tenants in private rented properties in Burnley and Padiham.
Yeah, I think this is really important, in no small part because we have such a big rental sector in Burnley and in Padiham. If you look at housing across the whole country, yes, we've got a decent number of owner-occupiers. That's the majority of people with mortgages. But the rental sector is pretty significant locally. And people might have seen on the news something called the Renters Reform Bill. So that is a new piece of legislation, pretty landmark legislation, that is working its way through Parliament now. I got an update on it from the Minister, Jacob Young, who's leading it through Parliament today. And we've made a couple of tweaks to that to make sure that the protections for tenants are there. So we will be ending Section 21 or no fault evictions. That to me is really important. That's about giving stability to tenants. But there's also protections in there for landlords, making sure that they can get access to their property if they need to. We're also going to enforce a good homes standard. So there's a standard, we call it the good home standard, that is currently not legally enforceable. We're going to make it legally enforceable because that's what people should expect, right? And we've seen, sadly, some really tragic cases about tenants being in homes with mould and other things like that. So we're going to have really clear, legally binding timelines for which landlords and social housing providers and whatnot have to deal with all of them. And then the other thing we've done on housing, which is tied to that question of rough sleeping, but what do you do for people who aren't rough sleeping, but they are homeless? They might be sofa surfing, staying with friends and family, but they're not in the right accommodation. At the autumn statement last year, we increased the local housing allowance. That was about, and that had been frozen for quite a few years. That's about giving greater financial means to those who are struggling with housing costs. And that's helping quite a lot of people move from that lack of stable housing, or sofa surfing, stay with friends and family, allowing them to move into their into the rented sector, be it social rented or private rented. But we're always looking at it, right? Looking at the Renters Reform Bill, we've got the Leasehold Reform Bill, we've got the Local Housing Allowance. I think if you look at that over the last couple of months, that's a pretty transformational package. And we've also, or the government's announced today, in that update I got from the minister, that they're going to look at selective licensing, see how that's working. We've got a number of them schemes in Burnley, just to make sure it's working in the right way. And then on top of all of that, to help landlords, because we should remember, most landlords want to do the right thing. They want good tenants with security. We're going to do a property portal for them, because one of the confusing things as a landlord is, what are you responsible for? What is the legal requirement for you to repair something? So having an online portal where you go, right, okay, what is it that's expected of me? What is it that's expected of my tenants? And those two things go hand in hand. So hopefully, once we get the Renters Reform Bill through as a full act of Parliament and it's in place, that should make a difference. The local housing allowance makes a difference immediately, and we'll see where we get to.
Yeah, I mean, you touched there on the selective licensing. You'll have seen in the local paper this week, and I saw this on the council as well, the extension of selective licensing in Pallium. So it's good that it's being looked at, on both on a council level and
well, and as part of that, we are going to look at how HMOs are licensed.
Yeah,
because that's becoming a, if we're honest, a bigger proportion of housing locally is being turned into HMOs. They've got a role to play. So if you're the student moving to Burnley to study at the UCLan campus, HMO's brilliant. But it seems to be that they're growing at a slightly more exponential pace. So just making sure that the regulations work. I know Burnley Council is looking to use some of the powers they already have through government regulation and primary legislation from Parliament. They're looking at expanding what they can license using Section 2.
Yeah.
But we need to look at it in the round and make sure that it's all working.
Yeah. There are a few people commenting now at the moment. I will get to the comments. There's a couple more that have been asked on the other day. So, for instance, this is from Mary. Where do you stand on the WASPI Women's Compensation Payout and the DWP's refusal to pay? This is the comment from Mary. So it's the WASPI Women. You've addressed this before, but if Mary's watching, then this is Mary's question.
So, I mean, I'm assuming most people know, but the campaign, if you see on the news, WASPI Women, the campaign relates to changes in the state pension age, first brought in the 1990s, to equalise the state pension age between men and women. Fundamentally, I think that is the right thing to do. I believe in equality, and I don't think it's right that we treat men and women differently when it comes to the state pension. There was then a campaign because of the communication, or what the WASPI Women said was a lack of communication, which didn't allow them to properly plan for their financial futures. And obviously, you'd be pretty heartless if you had no sympathy with people who feel like they've not been able to plan, they feel financially out of pocket. The report came out this last week, right? So I'm not going to jump to a conclusion and say I've read every page of it already. I want to read it, study it, speak to DWP ministers about it. The Secretary of State came to Parliament this week to say exactly that. They've got the report. they want to read it, look at what the options are. But we should be honest, these are expensive decisions. We're possibly talking billions of pounds, and that would have to be paid for somehow. So I'm not saying I'm not going to read the report and engage, but I want to be really honest. The fundamental principle I agree with, and I want to be clear that anything we do is financially responsible to all taxpayers.
Okay, cheers for that. Yeah, thank you. I hope that's answered your question, Mary. So just to go on the comments on this, Paddy and Baths this week, very happy to be here.
Yeah,
extra funding from the government to support swimming in the community. How much have you managed to secure from the government for this? For those who haven't seen, that's the question.
Yeah. So we've done this in two parts. So we all know that swimming baths are massively expensive to run. Massive amount of water. You've got to heat it, run it all the time, filter it, and all of that. Last year we got them some extra money through the swimming pool fund that allowed them to basically pay the bills. Keep going when energy bills were still really high, they were still struggling. That was about £80,000. And then the latest round is to try and take that one step further and go, rather than some cash now to pay the energy bills, how do we invest in the future of Paddy and Baths to make it sustainable long term? What are the energy efficiency measures we need? Is there a new heating system needed? That's the money that we've just secured, that Burnley Leisure, which runs Paddy and Baths, will now, they'll have a full plan of how to spend it. It's about 180,000 pounds. That's what that'll do. It'll allow them to do that, which ultimately, what's my interest? It's making sure Paddy and Baths is sustainable for the long term, because whether you're the child who wants to learn to swim or needs to learn to swim, the family looking for a day, activity for each other, or someone who's retired who, goes to the aqua classes, it's somewhere for all of the community. That's why I think it's important we protect them. Paddy and Baths is it's brilliant. You speak to most people who use it, they'll tell you it's brilliant. I was with someone yesterday who was saying they use it. It's the heart of the community, they love it. So that's why we keep doing these things.
Yeah, and to be fair, Anthony, on your Facebook post where you announced the money for it, there are a number of people saying, it was gutting when we saw Ghana Baths go, this bath go. But to be fair on you, you have been pushing for funding in Parliament for these types of facilities. And you can look back and say, it's a shame with Ghana, but protect what you've got.
Yeah, 100%. And sometimes it's all too easy to go, right, okay, well, where are most people swimming? The biggest swimming baths is going to be the St. Peter's Centre. But actually, keeping a proper leisure centre with a swimming pool in Padiham, I think is really important for people in Padiham. And because the St. Peter's Centre is so much newer, that's already financially sustainable. That's not to say it's not really expensive to run, it is. But we should have both, and I'm glad now that both futures look secure.
Yeah, so moving on from that, Mick basically saying he was nice to speak to you this week on Longton Road. Were you knocking on?
Yeah.
He says, we're nice to speak to you, and could you thank Don for helping his daughter from the leaking trough out from next door to the council basically put scaffolding and sorted his issue. So his conversations with you, and I presume with Don as the councillor there, he's just thanking you.
Brilliant. Cheers, Mick. I will, if Don's not watching, and he may well be, but otherwise I'll make sure he hears that.
Cool. Moving on to a bit of that were a positive comment, Anthony. This one's a little bit more negative. Okay. Steve, do you think the Conservative Party is in touch with the majority of the people? When we have a PM, multi-millionaire, and a Chancellor who thinks £100,000 a year is not a good salary.
Listen, we're all constituency MPs. My job is to represent Burnley and Padiham in Parliament. I think I'm in touch with the community, right? I'm sat here in Hapton. This is where I live. It's where my family live. This is the part of the world that I grew up in. It's my job to make sure that government understand what's going on here. But do I think Rishi as Prime Minister, Jeremy Hunt as Chancellor of the Exchequer could get our area? I genuinely do. Right? Rishi's been up to Burnley 3 times now. I can tell you the measure of the man, and he cares. Does he have wealth? Yes, he does. But he came from a normal background. He's worked really hard. And I think, actually, he doesn't have to be in this job. You know, he could be off doing something else, and that tells you the measure of the man. He's in this for public service, to do the right thing, to try and steer our country to a brighter future. And if you look at what he did, right, think about the furlough scheme during COVID. That was about protecting thousands of jobs here in Burnley and Padiham, 80% of wages, thousands of jobs protected. Replicate that across the country and millions of... That tells you whether he's in touch with the country. He knew how important it was to put the food on the table, and he made sure, by totally transforming the state, he made sure that continued to happen. And Jeremy, look, you know, he's, over the course of the autumn statement and the budget, there's hundreds of pounds in tax cuts for working people, because we all get the cost of living is difficult. It's been really difficult with energy prices and inflation. I think that talks to, you know, what their values and principles are. Of course, the media are going to latch on to different things. Rishi Sunak being wealthy, Jeremy Hunt in one Twitter post where he was talking as a constituency MP, not as Chancellor for the country. Of course, they're going to do that because it sells headlines. But I think if you look at what they do, they've got the interests of the country. And certainly when I take problems to them and I talk to them about things, whether it's levelling up in Burnley, you know, we're more than £52 million from the Levelling Up Fund alone. They get it, and they want to work with us on it.
Gemma, we didn't miss your comment. I didn't miss your comment on here. You are the next one on. And I actually empathise with you completely, because I nearly got run down in Burnley Town Centre by an e-bike, and Gemma's talking about the dirt bikes and quads through the town. 2 pedestrians knocked down in a week. And I'm not just joking about this. 2 days ago, I was walking through the town. I was outside, quick creps, and inches away from me with a guy pulling a wheelie. I weren't happy. She's saying she's reported it to the police. The police aren't allowed to pursue these people because it's a danger. But her point is that it's a danger what they're doing, and what we're going to do, wait until a serious incident occurs, until something's done about it. Basically, that's her problem. She says it's serious, it needs addressing. And what's going to happen about it, Anthony?
Gemma, I agree with you. It is serious. It is a problem. It is a crime. And what are we doing about it? So there's been a couple of operations in the town centre to do with the e-bikes and e-scooters, and you'll see some of the signage around now. The police are going in there. They are seizing stuff when they can. But obviously, it takes a while for the perception and for the deterrent effect to work. You know, you need to start seasoning quite a lot for people to realise, no, don't do it because you're going to get it seized. There's a big piece about education, and there's another big piece of work. You know, if the police find out where these quad bikes and scramblers are, they will go and seize them. You know, the police are really good like that. So, you know, whenever I talk to the police about it, they're doing as much as they can, but the thing they really want is intelligence. Right, so if you know someone, you know, if you see one going down the road and you can see it's pulling into a residential street where there might be, you know, someone might live, call 101. Right, that's the police non-emergency line, and say, there's been quad bikes in the area, there's been scramblers in the area, they've been doing wheelies, I've seen them around our bit of Hapton. Feed the intelligence in, because it helps them build a picture so that when they find where these people live, they've got all the intel to go and seize it, and they're legally able to do it. But, you know, there's more we need to do. I'll keep raising it with the police on behalf of all those who keep bringing it with me. Now yourself as well, Jamie. Always more we can do. I'll keep raising it. You're right, the police need to figure out a way to deal with it. But I know they've got an unenviable task, right? We'll remember, it was probably a year ago, it was on the news, the police were chasing someone in Cardiff, 2 young boys. I think one of them sadly lost their life. So the police are in a really difficult position, and I get that, but we want them to enforce the law.
It's a difficult.
Raising that,
I hope that answers your question, Gemma. Stephen says, police sort local buses out after 7:20 when they end, if not on the main line. Basically, he's talking about the Boys and Girls Clubs, which they got £1 million, didn't they? Yeah. And he's saying, we want the buses to run longer so that kids can attend the Boys and Girls Club. Yeah,
again, 100%. I've stood up in Parliament before and said, in some parts of the country, buses are nice to have. Here, they are a must-have. You know, they're a lifeline. They get you to work, to school, to socialise, to the youth clubs. One of the things we've done, we've got a thing called the bus improvement plans. So Lancashire County Council, as the local transport authority. They're building this bus improvement plan, and a key part of that is making those linkages better. We've also, as people might have seen, if it's in my Facebook, we've got about £500 million, or £500 million, for transport schemes locally over the next decade to make a difference. One of the things I think we should be looking at, and I'm feeding this into the council, is massively improving bus connectivity, both into Burnley, into Padiham, but also into our slightly more remote villages. And obviously when we talk about in Burnley, that includes going up towards where the Boys and Girls Club is and all those other things. Because the more you can link people in, one, we think about Pioneer Place and the nighttime economy, that all improves.
Yeah.
But also from a youth centre provision, that gets infinitely better as well.
Yeah. Okay, cheers for that, Anthony. Two people, John and Mohammed, are asking about an update on the SSB. I think most people who've seen your Facebook Lives before have seen you've taken quite a big stand on this. What is the update now, Anthony?
So, hot off the press, so I'm going to write back to everyone I've got details for. I'm going to send an update letter to. So if you're watching this and you're impacted by SSB and you're not on my list, so you've not contacted me about it before, please do. All you need to do is email me with your address and say, I'm impacted by SSB, can I get the updates? So, I spoke to a government minister today about the underlying problem, which is, even once we've sorted the legal issues out, there's still defective cavity wall insulation in lots of people's houses, and that needs sorting too. So they've gone away to look at that with their officials in the civil service to look at what might be possible. Obviously there's different guarantee schemes, but they don't seem to be working. So they're going to go away and look at it and come back to me. So I'll write to everyone just to say, please make sure you've registered with, if it's cavity wall insulation, it's probably CEGA, the Cavity Insulation Guarantee Agency. Make sure you've got your certificate, which tells you you're guaranteed, because that will become really important. The legal issue, most people now should have got themselves some independent legal advice and be working through the court system with it and pushing it with the Solicitors Regulation Authority and the Legal Ombudsman. So if you've not registered with the Ombudsman, please make sure you do. If you don't know how, email me, I'll let you know how. The SRA is working with the Ombudsman to try and tie all that together. So essentially, we need to make sure everyone impacted is registered with the Legal Ombudsman. If you don't know how to do it, please contact me. Make sure you've got your cavity insulation guarantee certificate. You should have been given that when the work was done, but if not, contact me. I'll tell you who to get in touch with. And I'll send everyone an update on where we're up to, including copies of the letters I've had from the Legal Ombudsman, Solicitors Regulation Authority and government ministers. I'll make sure you get all of that, and we're going to keep pushing it. I think this is an injustice, and I am determined to play my part in helping you put it right.
I've seen the work you've been doing on this, Anthony, to be fair. John's just saying, and I think you're kind of touching it there, you watched a debate in Parliament about it.
Yes, on Tuesday.
Yeah, and the Halifax MP was there.
Yeah, Holly Lynch, yeah.
Yeah. Why was it that the Halifax MP started the debate, is his question.
So because of parliamentary business and other duties and meetings I had, I couldn't make the debate. But essentially, lots of MPs put in for ballots for debates at different times on different subjects. Holly Lynch, you're right, Labour MP for Halifax, she was the one who was successful first. Brilliant. I think the more MPs taking part in this, the better. Some MPs are signing EDMs. Holly's led a debate. I stood up and raised it. I think I was the first one to raise it in Parliament when I did the Leader of the House. So it's everyone's kind of pushing in the same direction, but we're using every tool that we possibly can to make sure it's on the radar of government, of the media, of the Solicitors Regulation, Legal Ombudsman. So it's kind of all pointing in the same direction, but using different tools as we can.
Cool. Rob's, I think this might be in reference to the boundary changes that are coming for the next general election. Do you ever visit residents in the Marsden area?
Yeah. So it's coming into... So, for those who don't know, at the next general election, the Burnley constituency, which is where I'm the current MP for, will change very slightly in the 2 additional council wards, Brighfield East to Brighfield West, which includes Reedley and Clover Hill. They come into the Burnley constituency, still in Pendle from a council, local authority point of view. And as it stands today, Andrew Stevenson is still the MP. I'm the parliamentary candidate. And then hopefully at the next election, I'll get returned and I'll be the Member of Parliament for that bit. So I do go in. I've been knocking on doors up in the area. Sorry if I've not got to you yet. But it's difficult because I can't do the MP stuff in the area, but I can do the knocking on doors. But if there is anything I can help with, still come to me. I'm happy to engage with Andrew Stevenson and make sure between the two of us we can tackle anything. But if it's just a chat you want, you want to bend my ear or get my views on something, use the Facebook Lives. Hopefully I come and knock on your door soon and we can have the chat. Or drop me an email.
Yeah. Sandra, just to answer your question quickly about the St. Peter's baths, 167,000 is what they got in November, which is what?
In Padiham?
No,
in Burnley.
Burnley,
Yes.
St. Peter's, which was in November.
Yes. So that was the same thing as the Padiham one about helping to pay the bills, because the bills were quite high.
Yeah. You're just asking about the Burnley one.
Yeah.
Going down, Kirk, very nice comment. I hope you get in next time, as you've been the best MP we had.
Thanks.
Which is good. I think on that point, I'll just add, I've got a couple of other questions related to that from the post 2 days ago that you put on. A chap called Graham and a guy called Damien are both talking about, and they're both quite long messages, but your chances in the next general election. So I'll give you a flavour of what Graham's saying. Is basically he fears you will have an uphill battle on your hands, but he thinks that by the looks of it, he's basically saying he thinks you're doing a decent job. He fears a Labour MP, especially an inexperienced one, has the potential to be a disaster for the town. And Damien on the same thing, saying he really hopes that you keep your seat. He thinks that you should be really proud of what you've done in Burnley. He's definitely seen a difference, and he thinks that you deserve to win again. But the question kind of touches on not just what Graham and Damien are saying. What are your chances in the next election? That's the question that's been asked a few times.
Well, first of all, thank you for the comments. It really is lovely. And I'm pleased that, what I do, people look at and think is good and worthwhile and is making a difference. I think it is. I look at the Burnley I knew as I was growing up and the Burnley today, and I think we've got so much going for us. In terms of the election, everyone's right? There's going to be a tough general election. I can't sit here and tell you otherwise. But what I would say is, in 2019, I was told I can't win in Burnley. The Conservatives have not won in Burnley for more than 100 years, and Antony, you're not going to do it. And we proved them wrong, and we proved them wrong by working hard and telling people what I was going to do. And then I think I've delivered on it, right? I've made sure I am accessible, doing things like this, and made sure that we're pulling in the government investment. So is it going to be hard? Of course it's going to be hard. But do I think I've got a fighting chance? Yeah, I do. But I need everyone who thinks that what we're doing in Burnley is making a difference to come out and when the time comes, vote for it. But also just to make sure friends and family and other people can see the difference, because I do think sometimes, the media narrative can be it can sap some of your energy away. And so if you're seeing a positive difference in Burnley, tell your friends and your family, because there's plenty of other people who like to say otherwise. But yeah, it's going to be tough. But I think I'm in with a fighting shot, and I am going to throw everything, the kitchen sink, the whole house, right? I am throwing everything into this general election campaign because I believe in what we're doing. I believe, we are the best place in the country. I don't just say that. I was talking to a group of visiting students from the US earlier this week, and I started to describe where I was from, and you almost get a bit emotional about it. You talk about the rolling fields, the picturesque villages. I think I actually wrote it in my Burnley Express column. I think there's something so special about where we're from, and I'm determined to keep playing my part to boost us up and make us even better and address some of the challenges we've got at the same time.
I don't want to make this next question a long one, Antony, but it kind of links into what you're saying. But you've really gone on the local element here. This is about Burnley, Padiham, and all the villages, and what you've been doing and what you want to do if you continue to be the MP. Somebody on the comment called Mel has asked about the defection of Lee Anderson.
Yeah.
And it kind of touches to that national picture, really, of what about reform? That's where she's going. What about reform?
Yeah, look, I have a lot of time and respect for Lee as a colleague, as a friend. We were elected in 2019 together. I think he's a brilliant campaigner for his constituents, and I think it's a great shame that he's no longer in the Conservative Party, because I think he was an asset to us and an asset to his constituents. But, to the last comment, the last comment spoke about the risk of Labour and an inexperienced Labour MP, and essentially going back to what Labour have always done, which is take our area for granted, forget about it, and they'll promise the world beforehand. And the real risk of reform is, we all know they can't win. We've had multiple by-elections. They've never managed to increase their share of the vote properly. So they're not going to win. But what they could do is inadvertently let Labour in. And I think that's a risk. So whilst I have a lot of time for Lee, I wish he hadn't done what he'd done. I wish he was still in the Conservative Party. But we are where we are.
Yeah, I get that. Sam is asking, can you explain why adult social care has been added to our council tax bill? When I become the age where I need adult social care, will I have to pay for it? If so, will I have not paid twice?
So, this change predates my time as your MP, but it was, quite a few years ago that, because we all know the pressures of the adult social care system, a precept was added, and that money goes directly to the adult social care team in Lancashire County Council, and it helps them deal with some of those budgetary pressures. Now, we do have a longer term plan to deal with adult social care, including a cap on how much people can pay. We've done some of the legislation in Parliament, but we need to fine tune it. So, the plan, the hope is we can get the adult social care plan in place, which will cap costs, provide far better security for people locally, to make sure that they're not having to, do the terrible things like sell their home just to pay for their care and all of that. But, Lancashire County Council is responsible for that adult social care precept, and I respect the differences between what they're responsible for and what I'm responsible for.
But Sam is only looking at a small part, right? Because when he talks about adult social care, the bit that's being missed out of that, and I only know this because my mum works in this, with people with severe learning difficulties or who are looked after, and does that not come out of the adult social care budget for LCC, as far as I'm aware it did?
Yeah, so the adult social care for Lancashire County Council includes a massive block grant from central government. It includes money from the general Lancashire County Council budget, and then a small proportion is the adult social care precept. And then on top of that, you've got other funding streams from like the Department for Education, which goes into the special educational needs. There's a whole array of funding. It is one of the most expensive areas of spend for any local authority. But you're right, there's lots of moving parts in it.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make the point to Sam basically that it's not just, we're not just talking about when people get old and require care.
No.
There's people now that require care.
Yeah, of course.
And the reason why it's expensive is because LCC rightly want the people to be as independent as they possibly can. They live in their own homes and they have carers coming around all the time. Yeah,
so a lot of this
costs money.
Yeah, a lot of this is about making sure that those who can work are supported to stay in work. That the support for adult social care is not. You're right. It's not just for older people. There's a whole array of people. From 18 all the way up, and I think it's really important from a dignity perspective that we help people live independently with support if needed, and get them out and about in the community, and if they can work, help them get into work, because that's better for all of society.
Okay, moving on. Dylan says police and council officers still not targeting the PSPO. Why is this? Is the PSPO what's been put in Burnley Town Centre?
Yeah, so in Burnley Town Centre there's a Public Spaces Protection Order, which is the PSPO, and that controls what can and can't happen in Burnley Town Centre, and it should be enforced. Now, enforcement is for both the police and the council working together, and indeed other agencies. One of the things that we're looking at with the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office, Andrew Snowden, with the town centre bid, with Burnley Council and others, is can we get some kind of town centre warden, a team of people who walk around the town centre and enforce that PSPO to make it the safe, welcoming space we all want it to be. So, do I think it's being enforced quite as well as it could be? No, that's not to say that the police and the council aren't trying, but more boots on the ground would help. And that's the thing that working with the Police and Crime Commission offers the town centre bid. We're also looking at it through the town board, which we've just founded. All those things should help long term do that. But it is a key part of the long term plan for Burnley Town Centre that we're consulting on. And if you've not taken part, please do. I'll pop a link in the comments just afterwards. Fill in the survey, because one of the things is what would make you want to enter Burnley Town Centre more and things like that, and better safety, through wardens and more police officers and all of that. Feed it in, because it's really important.
Yep. A few people had commented, Anthony, when we were talking on Gemma's question about the e-bikes in the centre.
Yeah.
And it kind of touched on what Dylan's talking about with the town centre as well. Dale says these are just points really. Dale says the issue is the sale of the e-bikes. If anything goes more than 15 miles an hour, it should be considered a motorbike.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen says that he saw one flying up Manchester Road, young girl on the bike, neither had helmets on, dangerous. And then it goes on to next one is SEND funding that were announced this week as well. The extra money. What can you tell us about the additional funding for Burnley and Padiham? It's quite a lot, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So just on the e-bikes and the e-scooters and all of that, I just want to reiterate the point. So we set up this long-term plan for towns for Burnley. We set up the board just a couple of weeks ago. What it's looking at is, what are the long-term priorities we've got for Burnley as a town? What are the issues we want to fix? What are the facilities we're missing? That's £20 million of funding. We've got to deal with those things. The police are represented, councillors are on there, I'm on there, businesses, the town centre bid. So obviously one of the things we're going to look at is there ways for us to design out some of these things? Dale is absolutely right that the sale of them is one of the things we need to fix. Yeah. That's the nature of moving technology. You go back 5 years, e-bikes and e-scooters were so expensive that it wasn't a real problem. The price is coming down quite a lot, so we need to relook and make sure we're doing the right thing.
Well, just parking Sandra's question for a second. Don actually asked the question at the start about the town's board. What is it all about? You've touched on it, so it might be worthwhile to let everyone know the town's board. You posted the video yesterday, right? Yeah,
posted a video about it. So there's kind of 3 strands of work for this town board. As I said, it's got £20 million worth of funding, and that is designed to address the facilities we want to see, the things we want to fix, the services we want provided through this 20 million, all fitting into kind of 3 broad buckets. One is about safety and security and crime prevention. One is about transport and connectivity around the town and into the town. And then one is about heritage and high streets and how we make sure people are proud of Burnley and we've got the town centre that's vibrant and attractive and people want to come into. Now, I think we're making progress on all of those things already. You look at Pioneer Place, where we've got a new state-of-the-art cinema, restaurants, we've got decent coffee shops, we've got a town centre shopping unit that's not full of vacant units as others are. There's vacant properties in there, but the rate is much lower than lots of other areas. So we do quite well on that. We've got Burnley bus station. But where do we need to prioritise some things? Well, if we know e-bikes and e-scooters are an issue, then do we need to look at that town centre warden scheme? Is there greater CCTV we need to make sure people feel safe in an evening? Is it street lighting that's the problem because people don't feel safe walking around? It's all those different things. What are the bus routes into town, out of town? What time do they finish, to the earlier question? Because all of those things have a massive impact on what it's like to live and work and study in Burnley, and that's what we're trying to do. So the town board has been brought together with some of the key partners who can make that happen. The council, Burnley Council that is, Lancashire County Council, myself, the police, the college, UCLan, the football club, the town centre bid, the bond holders. Burnley Leisure and Culture from a cultural perspective. So there's all these groups, but then what we want to do is bring in the public. So a massive part of this is community engagement, because it shouldn't be for that board to just decide what to spend money on. It should be based on what residents and businesses say needs to happen. So the first consultation went live just a couple of days ago. That's what I published a video about. So put in your comments in that, but there'll be loads more consultation too. So if you're walking through Burnley Town Centre and someone stops you, when you're at the artisan market, engage with them, talk to them about what you want to see in Burnley and around the place. Because by the summer, we've got to send to government our plan for investment that's going to say, here's what people have told us, here's now what we want to do with some of the £20 million investment. But it's only going to be as good as the feedback we receive in. Yeah,
right. So a load of questions have come in now, Anthony. We're going to have to speed it up if we're going to get through them. I will say that. No, it's all right. So going back to that last one, just before the town board, the SEND school places in Lancashire, I think it's 19.2 million or something like that. Sandra's just saying, what can you tell us about it? What is it?
Yeah, so we know demand for SEND school places for support is increasing rapidly. This is about trying to address some of that need. So Lancashire County Council now will be looking through demand, seeing where best to put that money. But if people know there are gaps, and I know there's some gaps locally, so I'm feeding that into the county council. But if other people watching it are thinking, well, this I know is a problem, or my child struggled with this, or we're still struggling with this, send it all to me, because I can then go make a case to the county council to say, here's the kind of thing I think we should be doing, or here's where I know there's a gap, here's something we could have a quick win on, here's where some children need some extra support. So I'm happy to do that. But the money's gone to Lancashire County Council as the education authority, and they're now looking across the county to go, where is it that we need to put increased support and services.
Graham says the NHS is in crisis. Blackburn Hospital. We had this at the last Facebook Live, I think. But for Graham, if he didn't watch last time, you visited it.
Yeah, so I visited Royal Blackburn in over the winter. I've been there as both the Member of Parliament in a professional capacity, and I've been there in a personal capacity with family members. The service level is not what it should be. I think the Trust accept that. So me and some of the East Lancashire MPs are setting up a meeting with the health minister responsible. If you go on the website for East Lancs Hospital Trust and click on their waiting times, you'll see massive waits at Royal Blackburn and almost no wait at Burnley General Urgent Care. That to me tells me we've got spare capacity at Burnley General. So if we can do even more, then we should do. That's what I'm going to push health ministers on. Now we all know the silver bullet or the dream scenario is to bring back the A&E. I can't promise that, because all the conversations I have indicate it's not currently deliverable. You need a whole range of things when you do an A&E, like an urgent, an intensive care unit. You need wards that you can move patients to. You need ambulance drop-off points and all of that. It's really difficult. That's not to say, if I find a way to do it and the NHS Trust find a way to do it, I'll be the first person standing up in Parliament saying that that's what we need to do. But what I don't want us to do is wait for that point and in the meantime put Burnley Hospital over here and say, well, we'll just improve emergency care at Royal Blackburn. So at the meeting that I've requested with health ministers, and other East Lancashire MPs were supportive of my letter that I put in, I've asked for them to look at and work with me, other MPs and the Trust to see what we could shift, what investment do we need to put into Burnley General to massively increase what it's capable of doing. Because if we can do that, we take demand off Blackburn, even if that is one short of getting the A&E back.
Yep.
And I should say, at the budget earlier this month, the Chancellor announced billions of pounds extra for the NHS. Now, billions of pounds means nothing to anyone, but what does make a difference is investing in new diagnostic equipment. So this is new scanners, stuff that uses AI because you can make diagnoses far quicker. And there's actually been some really good examples in the last couple of weeks of where if you've got a scanner with AI in it, even if a doctor misses it, the system will pick it up, and that allows you to treat people quicker, more efficiently, reduces the cost, reduces the pressure. That's what the extra money for the NHS are going to go into. My job is to make sure that some of that new diagnostic equipment, some of that new funding announced at the budget comes to Burnley General.
Yeah, good. That's really good. James is, I don't know about this. He's saying foster carers in other areas get a reduction in council tax, but why not here in Burnley? I mean, you're not on the council, I get that. So that's a difficult question for Anthony James.
James, I'm happy to give you my opinion. If it was my choice, I would say that those who are leaving care, at 18, I don't think they should be paying council tax for the first year or two. I think they've had a pretty difficult start in life, and anything we can do to help them. Jamie's right, it's not a decision for me, it's for the council, and I accept the council looks at its budget and has to make decisions. But my personal view, and I can do that because I'm an MP and I'm not on the council, but my personal view is I would have a council tax discount of 100% for the first year or two when someone leaves care, so that when they're setting up their life and they've not had necessarily the same family life, they don't have the same support network that people moving out of mum and dad's house have, then I think we should give them that bit of extra support.
John is asking where and when is the next open meeting where we can see you in person?
I'll have to check, but I will publish them all on the website, anthony.co.uk/events, and we've just done the last couple, but I'll put it on the website, John.
Brilliant.
There was one plan for a supermarket, but we had to cancel it at quite short notice.
Someone's talking, so Dan, talking about how about sewerage problems, he says. It's a nasty topic. Dog owner gets £1,000 fine for not cleaning up after a dog, yet water companies get 180 million bonus after 500,000 leaks this past year. Shareholders still get... Basically, it's the water issue, you know that. How can this be right?
Yeah, well, it's not right. So, storm overflow, the whole story reflects the storm overflows, which are the pipes that essentially release diluted sewage, essentially, from the sewage system into the waterways at the point that the sewers get full. So if you imagine the sewer pipe here, as the rain gets higher, it gets fuller and fuller and fuller. Once it gets to the top, the water's got only one place to go. And the problem comes because rainwater and sewage, so and by sewage we mean stuff coming from people's houses for the most part, rainwater and that all goes into the same pipe. So when there's significant rain, there's kind of two ways it can go. It can either come back up into people's houses and through the streets. You only need to ask people in Paddy and what that looks like when water's coming up on the streets. It results in flooded houses, flooded businesses. Or you have an overflow pipe, which is up at the top, and think of this as the overflow on your bath or sink. So the water in the sink gets higher and higher. If it gets to the point where it's almost about to overflow, it'll go down the drainage pipe. That's what a storm overflow is. There's not been enough investment from water companies. There has been more investment than ever before, but there's not been enough. And so the number of discharges is still quite high. Is it appropriate that water companies are paying massive dividends and bonuses to their bosses at the point that we're seeing record levels of discharges? No, it's absolutely not. We're capping all of those things. We're making sure that water companies are fined now if they're releasing wastewater. But I don't want people to think that this is, sewers full of dirty wipes exiting into rivers. It's not. It is still mostly treated, but it's a problem. I accept it's a problem. The problem is we can't just say shut off the pipe, because like if you shut off the escape valve on your bath or your sink and the water level rises, it's going to flood your house. We can't do something that we know would flood houses and businesses and streets across the area. So it's about pushing the water companies. We've got a 10-year plan to increase the amount of investment into sorting the problem out. That is, I think it's more than £100 billion over the next decade. So it's significant, but there's always more to do, and I'm going to keep making sure that for our part, United Utilities are held to account for anything they do.
Cheers for that. Quick Reps are asking, is it possible to increase parking to 1 hour in Burnley instead of 40 minutes?
I would love to. I think on-street parking should be about an hour. I'd also like to see the parking charges come down a little bit. You know, if you can get a bus into Manchester for £2, I personally don't think it's sustainable to have parking charges ever increasing, because what you're doing is pushing people onto buses to go further away. I'm happy to take the proposal to the county council, which runs the on-street parking, and to the borough council to see if they're willing to shift. I mean, I agree with you. Right, we were talking just before about what we want to do to make our town centre attractive, whether you're living here, working here, studying here, spending your social time here. A key part of that, transport and connectivity. Whilst the bus is great for lots of people, families aren't going to be getting on the bus. They need somewhere to park, and we shouldn't be pricing them out with high parking charges.
A bit of a strange one, the next one. Lucy says, basically laughing, saying you won't answer a question that you did answer, which I found funny. And then the guy who answered it, I know, typical. But I just think, like, why would you do these Facebook lives if you weren't going to answer? You are answering the questions. I'm asking Antony the questions. So I just think that's...
What was the question that I...
It were about adult social care, which you answered. So there's no point going back over it. The next one is...
I'll just say, if people don't think I'm answering the question, drop me an email. I'm answering in a pretty rounded way because I'm trying to answer for everyone. But if there's specific cases, because people will be watching this thinking, well, that's not how it works for me and my family.
Yeah,
We've got this specific example. Yeah. Drop me an email. I've tried to put the link in there for you to click on, but it's just antonyhig.co.uk/contact. Fill in your details, send it to me, and I can give you a more personalised response about your specific cases. But in a setting like this, it's easier for me to speak in general terms because everyone watching is applicable to everyone.
Exactly. Jean is asking, hey Jean, you're right. Jean is asking about Burnley's gridlock. She says the roadworks are horrendous. Rosendale Road's an accident waiting to happen. When will it be possible to get into Burnley to support the local businesses?
Yes, I agreed 100%, Jean. We all want to see roads improved, maintained, potholes filled, developments linked together. That's all brilliant. But, just have a little bit of planning about it. Make sure that someone's looking at it going, let's not put roadworks at every kind of key arterial route into the town centre. I'm raising it with the highways team at Lancashire County Council. Some of them are sometimes emergency works and you can't plan for them. They've just got to happen. Yeah. Some of them are, emergency works coinciding with emergency works over here with established works over here, and it becomes really difficult. The town to turf one, so the York Street under the culvert and all around there, that will be done by summer this year. So that bit should become a little bit easier. As far as I know, around Rosendale Road area, that's Cadent Gasworks doing some work, so that shouldn't take too long.
Following on from that, Aleda roadworks on Rose Hill, longer getting to work. Bernie asked the question around, and this is for the people who live around Burnley Football Club. Yeah. Asking the question, why is it so hard to get permit parking for people who live opposite the football club? So you got Ann Close and you got all the terraced houses around Lindis Road. There has been a number of comments coming about this, Antony. So for instance, Kaylee gives some advice about how you can contact LCC to get resident parking if you get everyone signing up. Bernie then says, we've all done that. We've been turned down time and again. And then Cheryl comes in and says, we've been asking for 5 years. And it just seems like you guys obviously have been asking LCC. They've been asking and they've been turned down. Where can they go with it? Can they get anything?
I mean, a number of residents come to me about these, and I always go to LCC, and I'm quite supportive. If enough residents in an area want it, then ultimately it's residents who are the most impacted by this, and I think it's perfectly reasonable for the request to go in, and my view is LCC should look at that sympathetically, particularly when you're around somewhere like Turf, which gets incredibly busy. I know LCC's position is, but it's only on match days, and that's not all year, and so maybe it's disproportionate, which is why they ask for local resident support. If there are examples where we go, we get the majority of residents to support it, and LCC still say no, please come back to me with it. If I can get a list of residents on the street who are supportive, I want to take that to LCC because I've not seen them reject it yet. With that, I've not seen them support one either. It's just they always come back to me and say, well, we can only do it when there's enough residents supporting it. So I'm happy to go back to them with that and say, well, you told me that if enough residents supported it, we could do it. Here's a list of supportive residents. You can see this is X percentage of people on the street. And I'm happy to do that back and forth to try and make the case and see, because I know on match days in particular, it is a big problem.
Heather says, Happy Easter, Anthony. She hopes you manage, she hopes you manage to get a little R&R.
I'll try my best, Heather, right?
Yeah.
I love the job. I wish I could say something else. It's a vocation, and as anyone in a vocation will tell you, it is slightly addictive. And there's always something to do. And so I will make sure I get some R&R when I
You never want to let anybody down, that's the thing, isn't it? There's always somebody who's got something. Dan talks about youth services not helping. He says the kids are bored and have nothing to do and there's a lost generation.
So we've got something called the Youth Investment Fund. That is funding, as people will know, £1 million expansion up at Burnley Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
We will look at it as part of the long-term plan for towns. The town board that £20 million, make sure we've got stuff in town for young people. But I am going to give a plug here to our uniformed youth groups, because I was a proud and very happy Army cadet when I was growing up. And if you speak to any of our cadet services locally, the Army cadets, the Air cadets, Sea cadets, Royal Marine cadets, police cadets, they are crying out both for young people to join them and take part, but also for adult volunteers. So if anyone's watching it thinking they've got some spare time and they want to lend a hand, I know those youth groups would welcome adult volunteers.
Especially the Sea cadets.
I know they've put out a request recently. And if you're a young person, I got so much out of being in the Army cadets. It was something for me to do. I went twice a week. In an evening after school, and it was brilliant, but it taught me values about perseverance and being part of a team and public service and the importance of community. And we did some brilliant things as well. You get to go on weekends away, do adventure training, you go canoeing and rock climbing. It's brilliant, and it is totally free, and it's totally free for any young person who wants to do it. And I guess my point is, not every area has an Army cadets, an Air cadets, a Sea cadets, and a police cadets, including the Royal Marine cadets, the Sea cadets. We do have all of those things. So whilst we should always look at other youth facilities that we might need, there's so much going on there.
People do forget about it. Not just the things you just mentioned, which are all 100% bang on, Anthony. But think about Remembrance Day. You also get to take part in what is a very proud moment when you see the cadets walking on Remembrance Day. Up at top of Padiham, and it'll be the same in Burnley.
Anyone who comes to the Remembrance services will see the rows of Army cadets and Air cadets and police cadets and Sea cadets. And again, it's to that point about the importance of community and public service. Mm-hmm. And what are we trying to instill in young people? It's that, being a good social citizen.
Proud of the country as well. Yeah.
I think our uniformed youth groups are one of our best youth facilities out there. And so whilst I'll keep doing what I can to make sure we get more youth facilities, a diverse set. What I would really like to see is tons more kids joining, tons of adults saying, well, I might be able to give a couple of hours a week to this one, because that's all it is. It's a couple of hours a week and you'll transform a young person's life and help our area.
Cool. Sarah says, good job, Anthony. An important point too is how we are working together in East Lancashire through business and investment.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Jojo spoke, I've seen Jojo comment a number of times about SEND provision. Sensory support is needed to help families deal with these needs at home. That's her input into the SEND funding for the schools.
Yeah.
But there's also I think an update on the Greenway Bridge.
Yes.
Yeah, an update on the Greenway Bridge. Yeah.
So I've asked Sustrans for another update. They've got another board meeting next month where they're going to take it. Essentially, they're still trying to figure out what the underlying problem is and who's going to pay for it. Now, again, until we know all of the underlying problem, it's really difficult. But people watching may have seen that we've had two big transport announcements recently. One is 244 million, I think it was, for potholes and road maintenance. The other is £500 million that I mentioned earlier for transport infrastructure. So I am making the case to Lancashire County Council that one of the things, whatever Sustrans decide about the bridge, in terms of what the underlying problem is, if the problem is money, we've got £500 million there. A small proportion of that would help reopen that bridge for the long term. Yeah. I know I've seen some comments about why we can't reopen the footbridge, even if we can't reopen the top bit. I'm told that's because they still haven't been able to confirm that there's not the risk of masonry falling off the top. I'll keep pushing it. Look, I want to see that. I live in Hapton, right? We can, I'm not too far from this. It's just down the road. I think it's a massive resource for us. It connects people to work. It's used for leisure. There's almost no one in Padiham that will tell you that that's not an important resource. So I'm going to keep pushing it. Yeah. It's just I'm slightly in the hands of those who are responsible for the bridge to tell me what it is they need. And I know they're looking at it. I know they're working on it. I've asked them if they'll come up to Padiham so we can go and do another site visit. Because I always think it's more helpful getting the people who are responsible up there, up to Padiham, so we can talk to them and they can see how important it is for the community. That was useful last time. Out of that meeting, we managed to get the Coal Authority to do the sonar studies. So if it takes us getting them up here again to again visualise just the way that has cut off access, then that's what we'll do.
You're 100% right with that. It needs pushing and it is being pushed. There's only so much that can be done, isn't there? The last comment, it's just past 8 now, so the last comment to wrap it up. Thank you for holding these Facebook events. Especially people who have disabilities or are housebound can put questions to you, and you've answered all the questions that I've asked. And to be fair, I've gone through everyone now, Anthony. So
we've not missed anyone.
No, we've not missed anyone. There's a few comments of people, but I think obviously there's no question.
So, well, I'm glad they're useful. You're right. People who might struggle to get out of the house at certain times, people with childcare needs who can't get out when I'm doing a surgery at a supermarket. That's exactly why I do them like this. It's about, to me, the more the merrier almost, right? Supermarket surgeries, I do one-to-one surgery with people over Zoom for the stuff that's slightly more specific to them. I do telephone consultations. This is one. So the more the merrier. I'm glad people enjoy them, value them. I'll keep doing them for as long as you want me to keep doing them.
Perfect, thank you.
Cool. Enjoy the Easter bank holiday weekend. Some better weather.
Fingers crossed.
But I know
messing up your internet as well.
Yeah.
It's messing up the internet. Perfect.
Yeah. So enjoy the bank holiday.
Cheers.